Hi guys, feel free to like and subscribe if you're getting something out of this content, and if you want private coaching, go to www.coachcat.org. I am going to try to redo the video that I put out earlier. I was having some technical issues, so I'm going to try to redo it as best I can. In this video, what I'm going to talk about is this attraction between highly empathetic people and highly sensitive people and narcissists and toxic people, and how if you are a highly sensitive person or an empath, you can protect yourself from toxic people. So empaths tend to be very emotional people. They tend to internalize the feelings of others around them. They tend to have a high level of empathy. They feel other people's feelings very acutely. They can tend to, if they're not aware, and if they're not, if they haven't done a lot of sort of introspection to realize that they're like this and that not everyone else is like this, they can absorb the energy of someone else, right? Very easily. And not everyone is like this. I think sometimes if you're sort of like, I don't know how to put it, but if you're like an empath that hasn't quite woken up yet, you might not realize that there are a lot of people in this world that actually don't feel this way. They don't have a lot of empathy. I'm sure if you're on these forums, you realize that narcissists don't, and it's hard for you to understand because you're probably somebody who has a lot of feeling, and you feel other people's emotions. You feel their sadness, you feel their anxiety, you feel their joy, which is wonderful, but you tend to feel everything very sort of acutely and a lot. You have a lot of feeling, which makes you probably a very compassionate person. You probably have a lot of passion in this world, and you probably, have wonderful qualities, but sometimes it's hard to know where your feelings end and somebody else's begin, or where their feelings, you are feeling their feelings and you think that they're your own. So boundaries, so important, but we'll get to that. So sometimes, again, you can get confused as to whether it is the other person's feelings or your own. You can really feel other people's pain and sadness. Empaths have like strong connection to other people's pain. And so if you are experiencing a great deal of other people's pain or grief, you can tend to internalize it, and sometimes you can develop complex PTSD because you've internalized so much pain. A lot of times, highly sensitive people, you'll notice that they need alone time to recharge after they spend time with people. They need it because they tend to give a lot, and so a lot of emotional energy, so they can tend to get depleted. And sometimes if they don't have boundaries, they can give a lot to a lot of different people, so they can feel drained, and they may need alone time. That's why I need a lot of alone time in nature. I go to nature to connect and to recharge a lot. Empaths tend to be givers. They tend to be very kind. They tend to be listeners. They're good listeners. They really remembers people's stories. They tend to be very interested and curious about other people and their stories and their internal life and how they're feeling. It usually really hurts empaths to hurt other people. They really avoid this, and they tend to be conflict avoiders because they really don't want to hurt other people, and they tend to overanalyze, if they've hurt somebody, or they tend to carry the responsibility, and they over apologize when they think that they may have hurt or offended someone. These tend to be the world's helpers. They help others. They want to fix. They want to make everything better. They want everyone around them to be happy and well and succeeding and thriving, sometimes at their own expense. Sometimes if they tend to be codependent empaths, then they can give at their own expense, almost to a point of being pathological givers. They really try to ease other people's pain. And I just wanted to mention that if you are on this forum, you're probably an empath, or a codependent empath, or a highly sensitive person. And I truly believe that this world needs empathy. It needs people that care about other people, because it's become, callous in so many ways. And I don't think that developing coldness or callousness to the pain and suffering of other people is a solution. I think the world needs empathy. So definitely it is one of your beautiful gifts. And I'm not suggesting that you should kill that part of you that's so beautiful and that's so giving and so generous and so loving and cares about others. It's beautiful. But unfortunately, narcissists and sociopaths and psychopaths, because they don't have a lot of feeling, they feed on the emotions of other people, they tend to be very attracted to empaths and highly sensitive people, because empaths are great about giving and giving and giving validation and love and support, and they give and give and give. And so a lot of times narcissists will just eat that up and eat that up and eat that up. Problem with narcissists is they're insatiable, so it doesn't matter how much the empath or the highly sensitive person gives to them, the narcissist is never going to be satisfied. So usually this is a toxic dance between two people, and usually the empath is the one who is going to get hurt, because they are giving and giving and giving, and they're being depleted. They're being sucked dry by an insatiable person who is usually duplicitous, lying to them, cheating on them, doing all sorts of things that an empath has usually a hard time understanding. And I'm not making empaths out to be perfect. It's not that empaths can't cheat. They can too. They, codependents cheat. They can manipulate. It's not that they're perfect. It's just that they tend to, they can be pathological givers, especially if they're codependent. But narcissists are attracted to empaths. So, what you'll see a lot is if you're a highly sensitive person or you're an empath and you get out of a relationship with a narcissist, you might feel dead inside and empty, because on some level, it's almost like a narcissist is an emotional vampire that has sucked you dry and depleted you. And you have you're almost like apathetic to a certain degree, because you just feel sort of deadened inside. I would like to encourage you to consider that will come back. The more healing you do, the more awareness, the more you set boundaries, the more healthy you become. I think that you will get back to a place where you're thriving, and you will learn a very prudent lesson that there has to be some limits on your giving, and you have to be somewhat selective about who you're giving to. How can you protect yourself if you're an empath or a highly sensitive person or empath codependent? Well, if you feel your energy being sucked in a situation where you meet somebody and you feel that you're giving more than you're receiving, and you feel depleted around someone who is toxic, you get to remove yourself from the situation, and you can ground yourself. You can even do this in the moment by doing some breathing techniques. If you're even if you're at a party or something and you meet somebody and they're just you feel their toxic energy, then you can, exit the situation and go do some deep breathing, get into your body, get into awareness, get back into yourself, ground yourself, and try some, mindfulness and some deep breathing techniques. You do not have to listen to others if they're giving you a toxic emotional overload. You can start to establish some emotional distance and psychological distance from people that are taking more than they are giving. If you're feeling like there's a game being played, or you're being manipulated, or there's some toxicity, then you get to remove yourself from those situations, distance yourself. It's okay to have some emotional distance from people that suck your energy. Create emotional and psychological boundaries, as well as physical boundaries, as well as financial boundaries. You can create all sorts of boundaries in your life where you're protecting yourself. And it is okay for you to deal and care for your own emotional needs. In fact, not only is it okay, it is necessary. You are the only one who's going to do it. So you can't blame others when you're allowing your energy to be sucked from you. It's your job to set those boundaries, and it's your job to be able to determine if somebody's toxic and to create boundaries around those people. Get more in tune with your own self-awareness. Do some introspection. Figure out what your actual feelings are separate from another person. So you can do this by asking yourself some questions. How am I feeling? What is my body telling me? What is my intuition telling me? Am I honoring my own feelings? Am I honoring my own truth? Is this a self-honoring behavior? Or am I people pleasing to avoid conflict? Is this other person's feelings that I'm internalizing, or are these my own feelings? Listen to your intuition. It might be, when you're beginning this journey, your intuition might be that smallest, quietest little voice in your belly that's telling you there's something not right here. And I think if you look back on the relationship with the narcissist, there was something in you that told you that something wasn't quite right, and maybe you couldn't put your finger on it, but something told you. And I want to encourage you to consider that you do not need a dossier. You do not need a freaking load of evidence. You don't need a detective to tell you that this person is not upfront. They're not honest. They're game playing. They're manipulating you. You don't need external validation to tell you that that's happening. Listen to your body. Listen to your intuition. What is your soul guide? What is your conscience telling you? What is your intuition telling you? I call it my God consciousness. I call it like God's voice telling me there's something not right here and you need to protect yourself. Start to act on your intuition. When you hear it, when you feel it, when your body's telling you, listen. Learn to trust yourself, and you don't have to get external validation to trust yourself. A lot of times, empaths and highly sensitive people did come from trauma, not always, but a lot of times. And so they tend to be massive people pleasers, where they think they need to check with a million people to get validation for what they're feeling, because they typically or often invalidate their own feelings and their own intuition, and they don't trust themselves. And I'm here to encourage you to start listening to that little inner voice and to respect it and honor it, and to engage in self-honoring behaviors. Spending time with you is a privilege, and not everyone has earned that privilege. If you're an empath codependent, you may just be giving to everyone, and without any boundaries. And I heard somewhere, I can't remember, but basically, empathy without boundaries is like self-destruction. It's like self-destructive. So you need empathy. Empathy is a beautiful thing, right, that you're gifted with, but you also need boundaries coupled with that empathy. So no is a complete sentence. Learn that no is a complete sentence. You don't have to have a whole explanation of why you can just say no. Let your no mean no and your yes mean yes. Just, if you're going to do something, then make sure that you're not doing it and you're going to later be resentful of the person who's asked you. So try to be really honing in on your inner truth. Learn to remove yourself from situations and people who are takers and emotional vampires, and people that if you've noticed the relationship is not reciprocal and it's lopsided, and you're giving and giving and giving and they're not. And that could be giving of emotional energy. It could be giving of communication. It could be giving of material goods. It could be giving food, whatever you're giving. If you're giving and you're not feeling some reciprocity, or it's unequal, then hone into that and stop yourself from overgiving. And that can be very difficult if you're codependent. But one way to do that is to get very clear on your boundaries, your core values, and your morals. Like, what is your truth? And try to honor your truth. I know none of us does it perfectly, and sometimes in the moment we get lost up in the moment. But what are your boundaries? What are your core values? And is this behavior in line with your truth and your core value? But you have to know what those are in order to be able to establish them. You can buy time. This is something that I've learned. I can buy time. I don't need to, if somebody asks me to do something, I don't need to commit on the spot. I can say, thank you so much for asking me. Let me think about that and I will get back to you. And then you can go and decide on your own, is this something I want to do? Is this a self-honoring behavior? It's not always, is this something I can do? It's, is this a self-honoring behavior? Is this something that I want to do? And does it feel right to me? And really hone in on that truth. And if the answer is no, you can go back to them and say, hey, thanks so much for asking. I really appreciate it, but I'm unable to do that at this time. Or thank you so much for asking, but I'm going to have to say no. Thank you so much. And healthy people are going to respect that boundary. And they'll say, oh, thanks so much for letting me know your truth. I respect your boundary and I honor it. Thanks so much. They may not say it like that, but if somebody gets mad at you for setting a boundary, or they manipulate you and you try to set a boundary, that's a red flag. They're not respecting your boundaries. And that is a very important thing to hone in on. And then, so that's just some notes I made on, being able to protect yourself, because I know if you're an empath and if you're an, empath or codependent or highly sensitive person, you have this the desire in you to help others and to be a giver and to be, very empathetic and to try to help people and fix them. But, I would encourage you to consider that if somebody didn't ask you to help fix their problems, then you're offering, unsolicited advice or unsolicited help when that may not be the best thing for them. And even if they do ask you to help fix their problems, you have to ask yourself, is this a self-honoring behavior? Do I really have the bandwidth to deal with this? Is this really my problem, or do I want to take this on as my problem? And you get to make that decision individually, but don't do it without some deep consideration. So no is a complete sentence. Get very clear on your boundaries, and it may be very scary for you to set them, but the more you set them, the more you practice this self-honoring, self-loving by sticking to your boundaries and not worrying too much if you please other people or if it makes them mad or if they get upset, because you have to protect yourself and, love yourself. And the more you set your boundaries and stick to your boundaries and know what your truths are and you stick to them, the more self-respect and self-esteem you will develop. So thank you so much, and I hope you guys are thriving and having a wonderful day. Bye-bye.